If someone offers you this, walk away. In 2016, a man was staying at his friend's cabin in the woods when he decided to go for an evening stroll. A little ways down the trail, he hears someone call out from behind his neighbor's house. He looks up and he sees this skinny guy pop out from behind the building who starts waving frantically at him to come over. Worried this guy could be in trouble, the man takes off running to assist, but when he gets close enough, the neighbor just offers him a fistful of Slim Jims and starts talking about how much he hates his wife. Sensing there was something wrong with this guy, he says no thank you to the Slim Jims and walks away. The next day, the man calls his friend who owned the cabin to ask him what the deal was with his weirdo neighbor. There was silence on the phone, and then his friend just says, "I don't have any neighbors." The police are called, and it turns out his neighbor was really some lunatic who had recently killed his wife and had been hiding out in the abandoned cabin next door.
This is the story of the haunting exorcisms of Anneliese Michel. In 1968, when she was just 17 years old, a German girl named Anneliese Michel started experiencing devilish hallucinations and a voice telling her that she was damned to hell. Her mother first became concerned when she witnessed Anneliese staring furiously at a statue of the Virgin Mary, with her eyes turned jet black and her hands seemed to turn into thick paws with claws. She also started doing extremely disturbing things, such as licking her own urine off the floor, eating flies and spiders, and exhibiting signs of superhuman strength. A priest named Father Wren soon began performing exorcisms on her, and the following clips are from recordings of these exorcisms.
This is the scary game of Bloody Mary. According to the legend, you have to stand in front of your bathroom mirror and say Bloody Mary 3 times in a row. The story says this will summon her ghost. If you see her ghostly face in the mirror, you can have one of the following consequences. Your eyes could be ripped out and your face could be horribly scarred. You could be found dead with claw marks all over your face and body. You could disappear mysteriously from your bathroom and end up trapped in the mirror with the ghost for eternity.
This story will ruin your trust in people. The Real Haunted Hotel. In 1896, H.H. Holmes bought a whole lot of property on one block and fused them all together to become one hotel. He hired different workers to work on different parts of the hotel, so none of them knew the full layout of the whole hotel. The hotel opened just in time for the Chicago World Fair in 1993, where people all over the world came over to visit. But this wasn't no normal hotel. It was a torture chamber in every room. For most of that year, he trapped people. He had gas chambers, starvation rooms, and torture rooms. He designed the whole house to be one big maze so they couldn't escape. He would like to play with people and give them a false sense of hope, so he would make stairs that led to nowhere. When they thought they were escaping, they would go down the stairs and literally hit a blank wall. Once the victims passed away, he would hide them by dumping them into a furnace chamber. He's now known as one of America's first serial killers. Give this video a like if you want more scary stories.
This is why you should always look behind you when you are in the dark. There was a girl who lived with her little sister and her mom, and every night she'd always sit in front of the laptop doing her homework with her back facing the door. Almost every night her little sister would creep through the door and jump on her back in an attempt to scare her. This annoying act became normal for her until one night it wasn't. She was on her laptop as usual and somebody jumped on her back. Now she was a little bit scared, but she's been through this 1,000 times, so she quickly turned around to confront her sister, but that was somebody else. This lady was standing right in her face and looking at her with that creepy smile. But the weird thing is, she couldn't see the lady, but she could feel someone looking at her, so she quickly jumped out of the bed and ran to her sister's room. She found her sister busy on the phone, plus their mom was out for the night, which means someone else was definitely in the room with her. She went to bed that night with this creepy feeling all over her, but the next morning, she woke up to the sound of her mom crying, so she ran downstairs and found out her little sister was missing, and there was a note on the bed that said, "You're next."
This is why you always say yes to tandoori chicken. In 2012, a high school tutor and her student stayed up so late one night studying that by the time they were done, the buses had stopped running. Without another way home, the student asked if he could stay the night at her place. Reluctantly, she agreed. When they got back to the apartment, she fell asleep on her bed and he fell asleep on a blanket next to her bed on the ground. A few hours later, she wakes up to the boy standing awkwardly in the middle of the room with a very strange look on his face. She asks him, "What's wrong?" He looks at her and says, "I'm really hungry. Let's go get some tandoori chicken." Confused, she says, "It's 2 a.m., just get a snack in the cupboard." And he grabs her by the arm and he says, "No, we are getting tandoori chicken right now." And he yanks her from the bed. Feeling totally caught off guard by this whole situation, she goes into the hall with the boy, and as soon as the door shuts behind them, she can tell that he is terrified. He looks at her and just says, "I'm not actually hungry. When I woke up, there was someone under your bed."
Videos that seem innocent but have a terrifying backstory. Part 5. This man kept finding food in his apartment that he wasn't eating, so he asked his girlfriend about it and she said that she wasn't eating it either. He didn't believe her, so he set up a video camera to catch her eating the food in the middle of the night. The next morning when he checked his video camera, he found footage of a woman that he didn't recognize walking throughout his house. He called the cops immediately, and as it turns out, she had been living there for weeks. This next video shows 24-year-old Hollywood actor James Dean giving a public service announcement on the importance of safe driving habits. Nearly a week later, Dean was killed in a head-on collision where he crashed his Porsche at an intersection. The following is a home video of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer taken on Thanksgiving Day. At the time this was taken, he had murdered and eaten the flesh of 9 people.
Yeah, like I said before, it gets too expensive and it does. I have to start eating at home more.
Warning, the ending is terrifying. One night a high school senior was driving her car when she started being harassed by the car behind her. She looked and noticed it was a man in a red pickup truck that kept flashing his high beams. The man continued to flash his high beams, so she panicked and drove home. As soon as she got home, she abandoned her car, ran inside, and told her dad to call the police. When the police arrived, the man explains that he was only trying to help the girl. He was trying to warn her about the intruder in her backseat with a knife.
This is why you should never go sailing, and I mean never. This girl named Tammy and her boyfriend went sailing across the world for about 2 months straight. They brought very little food and water with them, and they sailed right into a storm. Tammy survived, but her boyfriend did not and died in the storm. She got back on her boat and started traveling in the storm, and that whole time she thought her boyfriend was there. She ended up hallucinating for the rest of her trip. She had very little food and water and was surviving off of rations. And she still dreamed about her boyfriend being there, but he really wasn't. She was then saved and picked up by a boat, and her boyfriend was nowhere to be found.